Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Hizzy Hustle. I am your host, Tyler, licensed realtor here out of the Okanagan. Got some new merch, starting to look pretty good. I really like it. I think it looks fantastic, nice and clean. I was wearing the black on black one yesterday. I got a few other pieces, but yeah, that's kind of my. You'll come to see that this is the regular fit for the channel. Yeah, so. Kind of a free-for-all on this one. Exclusive interview on Power Play with Vassy Kapelos from, I think it was yesterday, with Mark Carney. Got a little bit of a hard interview from what it sounds like. I haven't watched it yet, so this is going to be a little bit more candid. But I just wanted to react to it post cabinet election or cabinet selection, swearing in ceremony. As we can see, that front bench looked very, very similar to our last prime minister's bench. So, a little bit of changes, but from what it sounds like, I think we'll start to see a little bit more of Mark Carney's net zero ideology start to come out in the next little bit, and I would really encourage people to look into this whole carbon credit system that's going to be implemented here over the next little bit. It's not regulated by any government agencies at the moment or anything like that, and from what I was able to gather, it's all based off of carbon reducing investments, so green investments and that type of thing. And I guess there's some type of way of determining who develops these carbon credits. And from what I've understood is that Brookfield has been getting these credits, and I don't know if they're able to now sell these credits or how that works when it comes to the big polluters who would need to invest in buying these carbon credits so that they continue to produce the things that they want to make and that people require. So that's kind of a little bit more. I'm doing some more research on it or whatever. I haven't actually learned too much about it. This is kind of just like the grazing of the surface or whatever. I don't know about how it's going to work or how it's going to be implemented, so don't take any words out of my mouth there. It's more just about starting the research and starting to learn. So without further ado here, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe if you're a returning person. I would like to get for a goal to get up to 100 subscribers at least by the end of July. I think that's pretty fair. 2 months or whatever, right? That's pretty much one a day almost. I don't think that's too unreasonable, but yeah, the grow. I think I'm going to try to shoot for hopefully 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. If we can make those two work, then it's kind of a exponential growth process. The more you get, the more you're starting to get. So hopefully we can make that happen, but I'm going to make my goal for 1,000 subscribers for the end of the year. So like, follow, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and let's get into this video here. So let's where am I here? Nope. Well, I'm not even on the right one. Sorry, I'm not that good at this stuff.
I want to talk about something a bit more conventional when you talk about big projects, and that is around energy.
Oops.
And in particular, when you said during the campaign you want to make Canada an energy superpower, do you mean you want Canada to export more oil and gas?
Well, that is an element of it, but it's not the element of it. So there are multiple elements. When you're a superpower, let's look at America. America is a superpower. It is a superpower because it has a strong economy. It is a superpower because it has a strong military. Arguably, it is also a superpower because it has soft power, has cultural, the American influence is multiple, and all of those aspects contribute to it. So when I talk about being an energy superpower,
I think America was a huge superpower, especially at the time, because of the infrastructure and the ability to expand, right? There was so much opportunity. There were so many things to build. There were so many opportunities that there was no holds bar, right? There was a lack of regulation in that time. So there was just, there was capital to be made everywhere. Whereas now they're very much trying to limit the ability for people to continue that, right? Because they're trying to reel it in a little bit. They're trying to control the gain. So creating that ability to become a superpower, it's not as easy as it is now, especially if he has this type of mindset where oil and gas is going to be limited, because that is most of our resources. That is a huge chunk of our resources, and it's going to cripple our economy if we don't actually capitalize this. And that's the problem, is that they're refusing to open the floodgates for those ones because they damn well know that people will start to sink investments into those ones because they're going to be more lucrative than wind and solar. I'm sorry, but it's true.
Power. I always say in both clean and conventional energies. So what does that mean? Yes, it does mean oil and gas. It means using our oil and gas here in Canada to displace imports wherever possible, particularly from the United States. It makes no sense to be sending that money south of the border or across the ocean. But yes, it also means more exports, without question. But it doesn't stop there. That in and of itself doesn't make us an energy superpower. We can be an energy superpower, and we have all the components in nuclear, in
Nuclear is good.
in potentially in carbon capture and storage, which is going to be
I don't
one
like
of the
that.
determinants of of competitiveness and productivity in a number of sectors. So what are we doing to build out all those aspects in our economy? What are we doing today? And look, if I were I shouldn't classify myself, but a conventional politician might say, you know what we should be judged by is whether or not we approve one pipeline, right? And that's going to make us an energy superpower. And that is a type of objective that you can define and you can point to that is progress, but it doesn't accomplish the bigger goals. And it's not at the level of what Canada is capable of. We need to do multiple things
There's
at the same time.
there's a lot of nuance in that answer, and that is your typical political answer. What are you talking about, man? Like, this guy is being trained. You can see it. He's getting better. He's getting better in front of the camera now. But the problem is that the pipeline is they keep on talking about the pipeline because it's specifically against the conservative platform about what their plan for energy is. And the problem is that the pipeline is it's fundamentally one of the biggest issues. Why we don't have one is a huge question mark. It doesn't make sense why we don't have a pipeline that goes across Canada. We have to ship our stuff into the States and then it comes back up from the States. It doesn't make any sense. That is going to cause us so many issues. It gives us less sovereignty. It gives us less freedom to flow our products to where we need to flow them to in the country. So I don't necessarily agree with that. Yeah, that answer was a little all over the place in my opinion.
In order to build this base so that we are creating wealth and competitiveness, better lives for Canadians for generations. So we're going to be very ambitious across a range. That's why we're not asking for one nation-building project. We're asking for nation-building projects, and we are going to move as rapidly as possible on as many of them as possible.
I think if I'm accurately representing the point of view from people whose livelihood depends on the conventional energy sector, it's not that they're asking you like, that's it, that's the be-all, end-all. It's that they want to know where conventional energy fits into your ambitions. And it's not just because, if I may, not just because of the record of the previous government, it's because of you yourself, your book Values, for example, which extensively talks about a reorientation of the market around the climate imperative. I think Canadians had been asking throughout the campaign, and now, like, is this Prime Minister Mark Carney of values, or is it the Prime Minister of the campaign? Like, are you going to build that pipeline if the consensus exists?
It's both.
First off, I've said repeatedly yes, first point. Secondly, that because I understand the need for that consensus, I'm a Prime Minister who can help create that consensus. You can't create a consensus on your own, but you have to drive processes that bring provinces along, bring the private sector in. Remember, I've got extensive experience. This is not just a concept to me. I have been involved in major energy projects for over 3 decades.
It's not a good thing, man. Track record does not necessarily speak well in favor of how that ends up playing out, right? Like, from what I've understood and from what I've gathered is the Bank of England was not in a good situation when you left, right? And these radical net zero type of ideologies better not be the route that causes all of our issues to follow down the same path, right? Because we're so we're so finely teetering that line in Canada right now where if these guys choose to spend money so frivolously without actually thinking about where it's going to go and how it should be implemented, we could really screw ourselves.
In the private sector. So I've got that experience, bringing the provinces, working with Indigenous partners, putting in place, as we have, billions of dollars of financing for those Indigenous partners, bringing in somebody like Tim Hodgson, who, when he was CEO of Hydro One, was one of the only major corporations to have a major Indigenous partnership program that actually worked. So we're bringing the components in. We have to deliver. Let me make another point, because I appreciate that you've read my book very carefully. At the core of the way I talk about the energy transition is the future of, including about Canada being an energy superpower, is the future is low risk. Canada's low risk is a business investment place. Low cost. We're getting the cost down, including the oil sands. The marginal production is low cost and low carbon. All three of those come together. We have the ingredients of all that. Let's get together and move on it. And it takes more than just one pipeline in order to accomplish.
And I do understand that point, but I think, like, in your book, multiple occasions, for example, you talk about the merits of a carbon tax. And now we have a different Prime Minister, Mark Carney, who says, the first thing I did in this very room was get rid of the carbon tax.
Got rid of the consumer carbon tax,
correct,
which is different than
the industrial side, but it's still a portion of the carbon tax scheme that existed in this country.
How much of the resources did that how much of the emission reduction did that consumer
9%.
Carbon tax? Yeah. Well, it's actually 6, but if you extrapolate it out to 2030,
if it went as far as it was supposed to go, it's supposed to be. It's not nothing.
It's not nothing. It's not much. It's not much, and we can do much better with different approaches, including collaborative approaches, which is what I'm looking to do. And look,
how can you be collaborative?
If you want a simple answer on will I support building a pipeline? Yes, that simple answer. I've given that multiple times. But I don't stop at that. I don't stop at, for example, if you want a simple...
See, I'm not saying I have high hopes for him. However, I don't necessarily dislike what he's saying. It's a good position to have when it comes to, like you just heard it. He just said he's not opposed to a pipeline. He said it. So if he's going to implement the actual process of building a pipeline while still trying to not force but emphasize carbon reducing things, and if he's just trying to push people in a direction that is more carbon friendly, that is something I can totally get behind. Like, I am your classic center left conservative monetary policy and slightly liberal social policy. I'm totally okay with that type of thing. So I want there to be an option for the free market to choose. I want the people and the corporations to decide how they want to run, right? If it's something that works for their best interest and it's something that they're like, for example, it's expensive to buy humanely sourced and local, like, bred beef, for example, right? Like, pork, the whole meat industry, there's a lot of gross practices that come along with it over time, especially when it comes to the overproduction of all that type of stuff. So I pay extra so that I can, I don't go out and hunt my own meals, but I want the food that I consume to be from somewhere that I know treated their, like, I respect, right? Like, I appreciate the sustenance that comes from all the meat that I consume and stuff like that. Like, I take those lives into consideration when I consume them. I don't go out and hunt, which makes it a little bit harder, but that's what I do in order to make me feel a little bit better, right? So if there's people out there that want to do this for the environment, that's totally okay. But I don't think the government should force people. I don't think that's right. And yeah, so like I said, I don't have high hopes, but I don't dislike. I think this is definitely a better choice than Trudeau for sure. I just hope that they don't go crazy with spending. That's the part that worries me, is liberal governments always spend, and his ideologies in particular always lean towards kind of, spending in times of crisis. I don't really know if that's going to work this time.
Simple answer on how do I make homes more affordable. I could just say, we're going to cut GST on homes. But that doesn't solve the problem. Just doing one pipe, it's good. Don't get me wrong, it's good. That's a positive thing, and working
but you didn't do it
in order to happen. But it's not enough. It's not enough to make Canada an energy superpower. It's not enough to build our full potential. It's not enough to truly get incomes growing across the country. We can do much more. We are going to be very, very ambitious. Build big, build bold, build now.
It does speak.
So then that's where my issue starts to come in, because like he just said, it's not just one thing, right? It's not just the GST. So if it's not just the GST, then what is it? You want to invest in different sectors to try to, and I mentioned this, I think, in my last video or whatever, about like the $25 billion or whatever that they're going to invest in the prefab construction industry and stuff like that. And it just doesn't quite make sense to me, because they're not investing in industries that are already there. They're just trying to create new industries to try to offset, right? Where if they were to just focus on the industries that we currently have and the construction that we're already doing, and just say, hey, we're going to slash all the red tape, and we're just going to make it easy for you guys to build. How would that work? I guarantee you things would change, but they're not doing that, right? They want to make all that money on the side. They have a lot of interests in those places. The government doesn't want to get rid of any of these agencies that are in charge of permitting and stuff like that, because then you're going to start creating job losses, right? And that's not a good thing when you're talking about trying to boost the economy and GDP and all that type of stuff, because the Liberals don't have a good track record, right?
Though, to what people in Alberta and Saskatchewan who didn't vote for your party are worried about, right? They are worried that it is the Mark Carney of values, it is the Justin Trudeau government, and the reason I ask about that is against that backdrop, right? You are still saying you're going to keep C-69 in place, you are going to keep the emissions cap in place. They view that as evidence of something. They view that, pardon me, as evidence of something that runs counter to what you're saying right now.
What I've said very clear. Look, I am a pragmatist. I go over and over on this, and I really am.
I really dislike that he keeps on interrupting and trying to talk over her, though.
Interested in results. So the point of building a pipeline, the point of building out carbon capture, is to get the results, to get get those barrels to the market, to get carbon down. You can do both. We have the capability to do more.
What happened to sovereignty? That's part of the reason why we need a pipeline, is because we don't have the ability to get our oil across the country unless it's on a railroad.
And we have the capabilities financially, from a technological perspective, in terms of the companies. Federal government can play a role. The Alberta, province of Alberta, obviously other provinces, Indigenous people have to come along for almost all of these projects in order for them to actually work. And what I'm putting on the table is, okay, let's go. Let's not talk about this. Let's roll up our sleeves. Let's focus in on specific projects, and let's work on them together. Now, very constructive, sorry if I may, constructive conversations with Premier Moe in this vein, also with Premier Smith in this vein. So the next stage of that is to sit down across premiers and other groups and start to refine that list and move forward. And we will change things at the federal level that need to be changed in order for projects to move forward.
Does that include C-69 or the emissions cap?
It could include both. Absolutely could include both. But I'm not going to do it conceptually. I'm going to do it on specifics. Do it for moving forward. And that's the point. The test is Canadians deserve results, not rhetoric and not talking past each other. And one of the things that
We haven't had a sitting parliament for 8 months. Parliament resumes on the 27th for a month. And then I think they take like another 8 or 6 weeks off or something like that. So in the course of almost 10 months to 11 months, almost a full year, I think Parliament's going to sit in for probably a total of less than 2 months. That's not results.
Feel very strongly about and understand, I think, from both being in the private sector and working across government over the years, is you can't get results unless you work across partners. So it's the federal government, it's the provinces, it's the companies, it's Indigenous peoples. You can't get result if you just say, we're not going to have environmental assessment. The Harper government tried that approach, effectively tried that approach. It doesn't work. You get tied up in court. So what you have to do is to work together for an efficient and effective environmental assessment process. What we have clearly signaled, and we've been absolutely clear, I've been very clear about this, is we will rely on provincial environmental assessments as appropriate. That is a huge shift in approach that potentially unlocks a series of projects. You have to do other things at the same time. Again, roll up our sleeves, sit down, map out what needs to be done. We've got the team here, and we have the will to do it.
I'm already getting the wrap sign, and I apologize. I know your time is very limited. I wonder if I could ask very briefly on how Parliament will work, on what you just mentioned. Have you spoken to Pierre Poilievre about seeking support from the Conservatives in advancing parts of that agenda?
Mr. Poilievre and I spoke after the election, immediately after the election. He congratulated me, and I signaled to him that if he was, as he is, seeking a by-election, I would call it as soon as I'm allowed to do that. So that's the conversation that we've had. He's not the leader of the opposition, as you know, at the moment, so any conversations, obviously, at least in the near term, would be with Mr. Scheer.
Have you explicitly had any conversations with anyone from any party about crossing over to help form a majority? No. When you called Donald Trump transformative, did you mean transformative in a good or bad way?
Yin and yang. There's both.
There's both.
I said what I said. He is. What matters for Canadians is that the relationship with the U.S. has changed. I've been clear about that. I said what I said.
Where is it?
When you called Donald Trump transformative, did you mean transformative in a good or bad way?
Look at him. Look at him.
Yin and yang.
They have to be friends. There's no way these guys aren't friends. Look at that. He knows something.
There's both.
There's both?
I said what I said. He is. What matters for Canadians is that the relationship with the U.S. has changed. I've been clear about that. For months. I think others were very slow to recognize that. I think it's now increasingly understood. Secondly, that it has bigger ramifications than just the U.S. The way the global economy is working is changing. We need to change. Working with President Trump, working with his team as possible, sovereign nation to sovereign nation, that's what I'm pursuing.
Do you plan to renegotiate USMCA? Can you trust him as a partner?
The sequencing, we'll see about the sequencing. I think the revealed preference of the U.S. is working on some of these sectoral aspects before broader trade deals. It is an advantage to us that USMCA exists. It is not right that it's being violated, but it is still an advantage that it exists, and we intend to make the most of our advantages in these negotiations.
Do you trust him?
I will work with him and negotiate with him, yeah.
But do you trust him?
Look, my answer is my answer.
Okay, I'll leave it on that note. Prime Minister, I appreciate it very much. Thank you for all your time.
Thanks.
Well, there it is. That was that was actually probably so far I would say the best interview that I've seen with Carney. You got to see a little bit of all flavors of him, which I think is very good. It shows that he even with dodging answers, it still felt like he gave an answer. So I will give him credit to the fact that he did. It felt like he delivered a little bit more than what he had delivered during his campaign. So I'll give him credit where it's due. I guess only time will tell, and we'll see what happens with it. So, yeah, thanks again for tuning in to another episode. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, hit that notification button, and yeah, we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.